Today we're talking about why the dopamine detox looks different for the INFJ. If you don't know what the dopamine detox is, it's like this movement that has been going around for the last years and has become very popular. It's all about the fact that specifically social media, but also things like greasy food, cigarettes, video games, they cause us to have a dopamine spike. And particularly like all those electronic things, they are working with AIs, right? So artificial intelligence, and all they do is to focus on and improve how often we can get this dopamine kick, which is an amazing feeling, but it has absolutely nothing to do with long-term satisfaction. That's why people who smoke, they continue to smoke, although they know in the long term it's not going to be good for them. Similar things with greasy food and so on. So that's the whole thing. And there's this whole movement that, you should just stop doing these things. Go on a real hard detox, remove your computer, remove your social media, and that you then learn to like doing things that actually improve your life, right? Because having those dopamine kicks, which makes you feel good, is no indication of long-term happiness, right? That's the whole thing. So why is it different for an INFJ? Well, it's not that we don't feel these dopamine kicks with all of the things already mentioned, but you know what the most difficult thing is? What the most dangerous thing is? It's actually those things that you're not aware of. And we as INFJs get a huge dopamine kick from our imagination. So you might think, well, isn't that a good thing? Like, why is that like something I would want to change? Well, the problem is that if your imagination keeps you stuck, at the end of the day, you're still not going to be happy because you're going to try to reject reality. You're going to stay in your mind. And, in the end, reality wins. I have tried this so often where I said, okay, I'm just going to stay in my mind. I'm going to be happy. But then your coworkers are still mean to you. Then you're still not having the relationship you want. Then your bank account still doesn't look the way you would like it to be. And today we're going to talk about how to get that dopamine detox for an INFJ in such a way that you feel amazing all the time, but you actually improve your life so you feel amazing in the long term as well. Before we really get into the topic, remember, if you haven't done this so far, to download the 5 pillars to an INFJ Epic Life poster. The link is in the description, and join the INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp waiting list. The next live round is going to start in January. So be sure you're on that list, you get access to the early bird price, and you don't miss the deadline. So back on topic. The problem with these dopamine kicks in our imagination are that we always imagine things that are actually not happening. You might say, well, isn't the best thing we always say, forget reality, have a vision in your mind of this is the job I want, or this is the career I want, this is the relationship I want, this is the kind of happiness that I want, and you hold on to it. Again, the problem isn't that we have that vision. That problem is that we're not willing to do the necessary steps to actually make it happen. And if you continue this cycle, guess what happens? The discrepancy between reality and your imagination gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And this was probably one of those things I didn't want to admit to myself for the longest time, because I was proud of that. And I talked to a lot of INFJs who pride themselves on this as well, as in, I don't care what's going on in reality. I can just add myself to some situation, somebody around me is making sure reality is working, right? Everything is going on, and I'm just in my head and daydreaming, and everything is just amazing. But that's just happening in theory, right? The reality looks different. And things like being addicted to social media or cigarettes, we are aware that these things aren't good. So although some of us are addicted to these things and, stay stuck with it, they're sort of at least something that we're aware of. But those other things, those are our real dream killers. Those are the things that can really hold us back. And I've made the experience not just in my personal life and my biggest transformation in my life, but also with, the clients that I work with one-on-one, people through bootcamp, that if you start taking those real world steps, that don't have to be that many, right? I always say we as INFJs, we have the vision, we can make things happen. So we don't need to do all the things. We just need to do the right things. And if you make sure that you remove yourself a little bit from this instant gratification of the dopamine hit, that we can create, we have to be aware of this. We ourselves can create a dopamine hit. Just remember the last time you closed your eyes and you thought of a really cool situation. Maybe you had a date that went amazingly, but afterwards everything went to pieces. Or you imagine, oh, I would get all of that recognition at that new job. All of these emotions come up. Or, oh, I could have this amazing amazing friendship group and we're having so much fun and life is exciting. But all of this is happening while we're staying at home, not going out, not changing anything about our life. We are not doing anything to have like a better relationship with our coworkers. We're just dreaming and hoping. And that is a toxic combination. And the most important thing is awareness. We don't have to necessarily give that up altogether. I love my daydreams. I think they're one of the best things about being an INFJ, that I get to create these emotions, that I get to create these images in my mind that make me feel something. But I also know that if I want to experience these things on a long-term basis and not only when I actually zone out, then I need to do something. And you'll see this. You have to do something in the real world. There's no chance you can have a life where you can be overall happy and satisfied and excited about the next day and excited about where your life is going if all you ever do is just be in your imagination and not take any steps. Your reality will always catch up to you. And as harsh as this may be, it's something we just have to recognize, we have to accept, and then take on the next step. So what is the next step? Well, to know that these images in your mind are there for a reason. If you can create it in your mind, you can also create it in reality. That does not mean that it has to be that particular person that you're so happy with. It doesn't mean that it has to be that particular job that you're gonna have a great career at. But to know that these emotions that you can create with your mind are a guideline to what you want to experience in the real world. And in the real world, it's not going to feel like this. Definitely not at first. I mean, think about it. If you have social media, for example, right? And Reels or TikTok are like the latest thing that actually triggers these dopamine kicks even more. Like you can just sit there and scroll, and every single time it makes you feel good because it happens automatically. I don't even think you have to scroll now. I think you just hold the screen and then the next thing pops up. And it's short, it's, right around our attention span. It's always something new, it's always something catchy. And so you can get lost in this, and people sometimes stay on this for hours and they don't know what happened. So in order to start creating something in the real world, INFJ or not, we have to get our mind to such a place where the normal things we do, which don't give us such a kick all the time, right? The kick might be at the end of the day, or it might be 2 times a day, or it might be, once an hour. It doesn't matter. It just isn't as often, and it isn't something that happens without changing anything, right? It's like you could just lay on the couch and you would constantly just get these feedbacks that make you feel good in the moment. But I mean, think of extreme cases. Think of drug addicts, right? I mean, they feel a high when they do drugs, but still their life keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And it doesn't have to be such an extreme example. Like even things like staying in your mind, rejecting reality, being completely in your own cave, like that thing can really make you unhappy. Because, we do this actually because reality is less and less what we want, and we're much more likely to stay in our mind. And that is actually a vicious circle, because then we even don't want to go back into the real world even less. It can get really hard. So if you're at this place where it's extremely hard, it's really important to start with those small steps, because like a complete detox is sometimes too hard. Getting rid of this beautiful imagery that you have created in your mind, this parallel reality that could actually be, but will never really be, giving that up is extremely hard, specifically when it gives you such a great feeling every single time. See, some other types like an ISTJ, they don't have to worry about that. Their imagination doesn't take them that far that they would get this kick just out of daydreaming about something that isn't happening. And so we have to be very careful about this. And if you start taking the first steps, that's why I'm saying look into the 5 pillars, because these things might seem boring, they might seem mundane, they might seem like not going to cut it, but if you start taking those actions. And I always say, we as INFJs, we have to be careful about doing things that are externally observable. So TE kind of stuff, extroverted thinking. I know it's something we dislike, we don't want to have anything to do with, but just make sure you have a couple of anchors who help you to make that transition happen. So at first, it's really like a detox. It's looking looking at reality and not looking at your imagination or your visions, but actually looking at those things that a friend could also see and saying, maybe I think my life is boring. Maybe I think that, I've been trying to get together with this person for years. I know I've done that, but there's just no interest there. And I have to accept that. And looking at the fact that if I stay at this company and if I stay in this position, I'm never going to get that recognition that I'm dreaming of and that I hope and that I keep busting my butt off. And I'm just not wanting to look at the fact that I'm not making any progress. Accepting this really harsh truth is a detox in itself, right? You feel like life is boring. You feel nothing excites you. It's also the same thing if you're addicted to some kind of drama, if you're always in friendships or relationships with a person who causes so much emotional roller coaster things in your life, right? Getting rid of that, at first you feel like you flatlined. There's no excitement. There are no dopamine kicks. There's no adrenaline. It's just plain, it's gray, it's dark, it's like uncomfortable and uncool. But I can guarantee you this. If you allow yourself to stay in this place, you will find a new balance point. You will find a new place of happiness. Because if you are not giving yourself the opportunity to consistently run away, but you stay in this rather uncomfortable state, you will find ways to trigger these dopamine kicks. You will find a way to trigger these adrenaline kicks, but you will get them in a healthy way, in a way that actually improves your life, that actually makes you move forward, that makes you feel like, oh, I get to work with people now more and more that I actually like. I get to be in control of my life more and more. I get to be the leading role in my life, and I get to experience these emotions because I create them. And I'm not giving out control to some other person who I'm waiting to recognize what I bring to the table, right? This doesn't have to be just a romantic thing. It can be family members, it can be friends, it can be coworkers, all of that. You take it back into your hands and you start creating your INFJ epic life. Be aware of that. The new year is just around the corner. So, start off with a dopamine detox. Look at those things that you always keep on going back to and say, okay, what if I didn't have that? What if I looked at my life the way it is and not the way I would imagine it? How can I improve it from that baseline? And it's a completely different game. And although it might be hard in the beginning because it's sobering, it can be the best thing you ever did. I know it's the best thing that I could have ever done. And I see these transformations over and over again with the people I work with, either one-on-one or in the boot camp. So get the poster if you haven't done that. You can, start applying those things starting today. Join the bootcamp waiting list so you're aware of the next life round. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video Why Adulting is the INFJ's Worst Nightmare.